Hello and welcome to Items On, the podcast where you get to follow your Melee players and personalities both on and off the sticks. My name is Ethiopium, and today we're here with Spark. Spark, how are you doing?
What's up? I'm doing well. Happy to be here. And yeah.
Well, thanks for joining our podcast. I guess the first question, which is the question we always get into, is what were you doing before you found Smash, and how did you find the scene?
So before I found Smash, I found Smash when I was like kind of just turned 16. So, I was in high school. I think I was in my school's anime club and the vibes were kind of off with the people there. I think I played a lot of CS:GO, but I didn't really know how to get better because I I enjoyed like the competitive aspect of it, but like I felt like, it felt like there was something missing with like scratching my brain. That game demanded a lot of discipline, but I couldn't like move fast and do things that I wanted. I played a lot of a DDR also, Dance Dance Revolution, and that was really fun. That scratched my brain in a way that I really liked, but it lacked the competitive aspect to it. It's mostly just fighting with yourself, trying to get better scores, things like that. And yeah, and then my childhood friend actually showed me the documentary, and then I was hooked. And then I was like, I didn't like immediately go like, oh, I want to go to tournaments, but there was he showed me that documentary, and then like we played on and off like really laggy net play, and then 3 months passed, and he showed me this tournament called the NorCal Arcadium, where no ranked players were allowed, and I was very naive. I didn't know how to wave dash, but I actually was pretty good intuitively. Like I played sheik, and so like her combos are very straightforward. What's funny is my brother played Marth, and he did know how to wave dash and L cancel, but because it's sheik Marth, we went back and forth, which was really funny. But yeah, so like I could hold my own, but I definitely was not a great player. And I was like, oh, no ranked players. Surely I could just win. And then I went 0-5. But yeah, in my round robin pool. And then I do remember some wise words from I think his tag is EWC. I think Earthworm Chuck, NorCal player, very old school. He said, you understand the game intuitively really well. So I think if you tried to like get good at it, I think you would get good really quickly. And I left that venue like pretty dejected, like I lost to everyone. But all I had were some encouraging words from this guy. And then I just decided to roll with it and see where it went, and the rest is history. The end.
That's awesome. I always love like the stories because so many players come in, you get, washed the first, couple tournaments, but there's always like one or two people who help you ingratiate into the scene. Because it is demoralizing when you show up to your first tournament or your first couple tournaments and you just get beat down a little bit. And so with, players like EWC, were there any other players that helped you ingratiate into that NorCal scene?
So that's a little tough because I lived in Tracy, California, which is like 90 minutes from San Jose, California, or just the Bay in general. It's in the middle of nowhere and nobody really plays Melee there. Mm-hmm. So after that one tournament where EWC gave me those words, I kind of walked away from it with like I went to that tournament because my mom was willing to drive me, and like obviously I don't expect her to do that very often. That was like one time thing, and then I was like, okay. And then I didn't go to another tournament for like maybe like 5 months or something. I just played really laggy net play at home. And that was that. So I didn't really meet many people. For the first 2 years, I just went to maybe like 5 or 6 tournaments total over those 2 years. And yeah, so there aren't that many people, but 2 years down the line over summer, someone started hosting tournaments in my region, which was like a dream come true. And then I quickly sort of started getting better then. There was a summer where I met Chokenator, very old school, very widely known by old school players. He wrote like a very in-depth ice climbers guide. Yeah, one of the best ice climbers in the world for many years. He beat Zane at Evo 2016, I believe. to give you an idea. And yeah, so that guy would just cook me every single time for like 2 years straight. Wobbling was on, and I was like an anime character. I was like, dude, everyone says Sheik can't do it, but I'm gonna prove that Sheik can beat Ice Climbers. And I did prove it eventually after many, many, many losses. But it was really cool to see like how deep Melee is as a game and how much it rewards effort and skill. Because like I lost to that guy like 40 times. And then when I started beating him, we went back and forth. And then one time there came a day where I would win every time. And when that day came, I won the next 40 sets and I haven't lost since. And it's like, wow, Melee rewards skill and effort. Like I feel like no other competitive game I've ever seen like is that this consistent. If you're good, you're just good. You don't get cheesed really. You don't get clowned. Yeah, I think it's really cool in that way.
Is that one of the reasons that kept you, that fire burning? Because you, like you said, you only were in tournaments, maybe 5 or 6 tournaments for those first 2 years until, your region started hosting. Is that
Mhm.
is that payoff that of, learning that new tech or learning that new matchup technique? Is that what kept you coming to the game even today?
Yeah, honestly, I think like it was just the perfect combination for me of like it was a competitive game and I got to like I definitely had like childish anime protagonist vibes for the first 2 years where I was like, I'm even though I don't live in a bad region, I'm gonna like outwork everyone, I'm gonna get really good. But I think I wouldn't have felt that way if I didn't really like playing the game. Like it was just really it just scratched the itch in my brain, like I was saying, like CS:GO and other games that I played really just didn't scratch that itch perfectly. But this game totally did. So I kind of knew right away that I wanted to go all in on it. And so my motivation was like half like me being like, I'm gonna prove to everyone that I'm the best. And then the other half was like, this game is really fun and I like playing it. And then honestly, like I say this in my I say this in my a lot of my Metafy lessons, but I think Melee as a game rewards certain characteristics of people. And I got kind of lucky where the things that I enjoyed doing were exactly what Melee as a game rewards. So like I'm not good at analysis or studying. I think it's really hard for me. I don't enjoy it, but I could just practice tech skill for hours on end, practice punish game for hours on end, playing net play mindlessly for like hours and hours, and I really enjoyed attending tournaments constantly. And a lot of people they get drained by things like that. But I actually get energy from doing that. I enjoy it a lot. It just comes naturally to me. And so I got pretty lucky where I would just, it didn't feel like work to me. So I just kept doing this and then I saw results really quickly because of that. Yeah.
That's really interesting. You said that it was very easy for you to go all in and make that commitment into Melee from, an early start. Was there any other things? I know you mentioned CS:GO didn't really scratch the itch for you. There was some things you liked, some things you didn't. Were there any other things growing up that you were all in, like sports or music or school, studying, or was Melee your first love?
Um, there were two things I really liked and I thought that I wanted to go all in on, but it's I think as time went on, I sort of realized that I was comfortable with where I was at. And to this day, I don't feel that with Melee. I want to keep going, and I would be sad if I stopped here.
Hmm.
Those two hobbies I had were speed cubing, so solving Rubik's Cube as quickly as possible, and doing magic tricks, usually card tricks to people. And so those are my two big hobbies from like near the end of middle school to like a good way into high school. Where I would just do those things a lot. And then when I was 16, I went into Melee and I kind of like everything else kind of fell by the wayside because Melee kind of just consumes you. So yeah.
Yeah. So did you, I assume in 16 years old when you're in Tracy, you're in high school, right? Did
Yep.
you move to a college scene? And if so, how was that?
Yeah, I did. I went to school at UC Santa Cruz.
Hmm.
Um, and that was pretty cool. I came in. So I was pretty. Let's see, where do I begin with this? I came in obviously like when you graduate high school, and I I was like excited because Pew Pew went to UC Santa Cruz at the time, and so I was really excited to like get my ass kicked. And I was a pretty tactless 18-year-old, like many 18-year-olds are. I wasn't like great socially, especially just being new in like a new community, and I didn't really know what the vibes were. So I joined this community, and I do think what I'm about to say is like partially not my fault, but I think it was partially definitely my fault. So I played a very not enjoyable to play against or watch Sheik, right? And I think like that sort of colors people's opinions from the start. And I was also not I was a very tactless kid. And so like when I was not good at hiding my disappointment when I went to UC Santa Cruz and I found out that I was immediately the best player that wasn't Pew Pew. So I was not very good at like hiding that. And I was like, dude, what the fuck? I was like, dude, I'm trying to get cooked.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to cook all of y'all.
Mhm.
And then and so people got mad at me at first. Definitely some moments where people were like, dude, this guy's kind of an asshole. And then I realized I was like, okay, I need to like get better at handling these social situations because I'm clearly offending people and that's not what I want. But shortly after that, like I integrated pretty well, and then I made a lot of friends, and people really liked me there as time went on. And it was really fun. Like there were just locals constantly, and there were carpools from Santa Cruz to the San Jose tournaments. That was awesome because then I got my ass kicked by like NMW. I played like at least 100 sets with that guy, or now Nickem Witt is his tag.
Yep, the legend.
Yeah, and all the great NorCal players like Ralph, Umarth, the list goes on and on. The sacred top three basic were like SFAT, Shroomed, and Pew Pew. They never really went to anything, so they were just kind of there. But I would play with Pew Pew a lot in Santa Cruz, and that was also really enjoyable. So it all worked out, and I ended up being really happy with just the way things went down. I will say, I'm not afraid to admit it. A big reason that I picked UC Santa Cruz was just because PPU went to that school. I care about Melee a lot. And to this day, I care about Melee a lot. I do have like a degree in computer science, but and I do enjoy coding. It's like it's like solving a puzzle, and I enjoy the idea of making cool things. But at least for now, I definitely enjoy Melee a lot more, and I want to take it as far as possible, even if the bag is so much less large.
Yeah. I respect that. There's nothing wrong with that, man. I mean, I feel like like people pick their colleges based on what sports they're gonna play or what clubs. Why not Melee, right?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. People are so judgy. They're like, dude, what is wrong with you? You're a fucking goblin. And Melee is really good. It's pretty fun. I don't know what to tell you.
Dude, and it's not like UC Santa Cruz is a bad school by any means either. It's a pretty good school.
Yeah, it's like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's just a win-win in every regard. I'm just saying. Like,
yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on one thing you said, which was like some of the social situations, because I feel like college is a very transitionary period in people's lives, and they learn more about themselves and how to interact with others. How is some of the things that you learned from that period in Melee transition to life maybe outside of Melee as well? Did you learn stuff about yourself during that time or about others during that time that helped you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely did, honestly. Like the game, it forces you to like, you have to talk to people pretty much. And also, in all honesty, every community has like a little bit of a meritocracy with like, oh, if you're good at the game, there are more eyes on you. And I will say, like, I think that I got a lot of eyes on me because I was taking all these names at the time at like the age of like 18, 19. And because of that, I do think people scrutinized my social skills a lot more. But I think that was a good thing, if that makes sense. So, like, people were already like, dude, this fucking guy plays Sheik and it's really annoying. And he's beating everyone. And he's like a really annoying kid. But luckily, that made me more quickly learn to speak tactfully. And I don't really regret that. And yeah, also, in a way, it's nice because I'm in this community to this day, and I feel like I can talk to anyone because, um, in all honesty, it does help that a lot of the people already know me, even if I don't know them.
Hmm.
But then you kind of realize that all human beings are 99% of the time, like pretty much just like you. They all like laughing, they all like the same things. So you can actually just talk to people and say something funny, and it'll probably go over well. So many times in my recent life when I'm in a social situation, not even a social situation, I guess, just like in public, and something like, like you can just, like, something funny happens, you can just crack like a funny joke, and then even the strangers nearby you will think that's funny, and because everyone likes to laugh. We're all just people. They're not like insane humans just because you don't know them. um but yeah, I just kind of learned that, like, talking to people is cool, and I was very isolated as a kid. I wasn't like, another thing is, I thought I was an introvert because I like wouldn't talk to many people. I wouldn't really go out there except for when I performed magic tricks to strangers. That was something I did a lot in high school. But I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm an introvert. But then as like the years went on, I realized I'm actually really extroverted because I get energy talking to people. That's why it helped me to get better at melee, because I would like going to tournaments, whereas other people get trained by going to tournaments, and I would like doing all these things. Um, yeah, so I guess that's that. I learned a lot about myself, and I also learned that you can just like talk to people, and it's probably the odds of it working out is actually like pretty high. And yeah.
That's awesome. I love to learn about that type of stuff. You said something a couple times that I would love to ask you a couple questions about, which is, for a lot of other people, tournaments can be somewhat draining. They can be tiresome, especially if you go back to back to back a lot of times. You, on the other hand, gain energy from them, you say.
Hmm.
Do you think that's like intrinsic? Is that something that you learned through the grind? And what is your mindset when you do? Because you do travel a lot, you do play a lot of tournaments. You're
Hmm.
streaming now. Shout out to the stream. So
Yeah.
you're doing a lot of melee stuff. I mean, how do you keep that energy going?
um Honestly, I should not be doing this. I'm traveling too much. I'm getting burnt out. I'm underperforming, honestly. And it feels like it's because I'm traveling so much, and it's a little silly, but I don't really regret it. But I think, unfortunately, my current stance is that it is like an intrinsic thing people have. I think that, like, at least I currently think that, like, people are kind of just a certain way, either genetics or environment, I'm not sure, but like some people are introverts and some people are extroverts, and it doesn't feel like that's something you can change. A lot of the time, um, I like wish that I was more introverted, because like then I could like focus on, like, now I'm at a level with melee where if you want to get better, you need to study, you need to analyze. It's not going to cut it to just play anymore. You have to like put in the effort if you want to be the best player in the world. And it's hard for me. Like if I was just enjoying just being alone by myself, then it would be a lot easier, in my opinion, to do these things. But the grass is always greener. If I was an introvert, maybe I never would have even gotten to this level because I wouldn't enjoy going to tournaments or something like that. So the grass is always greener. Currently, I feel like I wish there was something that I could do to like make myself more and get more energy from being alone, things like that. And maybe there is, I just don't know.
Hmm.
I hope there is, but currently it feels like people are just built a certain way, and that's kind of how it is. And yeah, so I kind of feel like my desire to go all flying every weekend, like the past 2 months I've been flying way too much. um and the fact that I get energy from that is kind of like, I think that's just a characteristic that I have probably from birth, which is like, for better or for worse. Yeah.
I like how you say the grass is always greener. I definitely think that it's good to realize like your positives, but also some of the negatives and how you can work on them.
Hmm.
You mentioned a couple times you're not the most fond of like that solo analyzation type side of melee, which again at your level is very important.
Hmm.
Have you, which is funny to say because I've heard, when it comes to your Metafy, you're a very good coach for a lot of people. Have you thought
Hmm.
about having other people coach you, or have you thought about like having like a set time where you do analyzation? What's your game plan, I guess, moving forward to tackle that problem?
Hmm. Yeah, so I had drug fox lessons for a good 2 years, I think. So I have about 40 lessons in total, and I've also watched his lessons with other people. So I think that is what allowed me to be able to analyze decently well. Um, and I help a lot of people with that, and it's helped me make the Metafy guide into being something that I could be proud of. I think a lot of that goes into what I learned doing those lessons. So even if I'm not good at analyzing, because I force myself to pay this money, it forces me to like learn. Although I don't do that anymore because I think saving money is good, and I could just watch other people's lessons for
Mhm.
a lot less money. Um, it is hard. And I do think I need to watch more than I currently am. I am looking to get another coach in the future, but one that does not cost money. I'm kind of looking into that right now. Um, I also think that it was pretty demoralizing because I had these issues, and when I it's also similar where like I hyper focus. I wouldn't call it autopilot, but I hyper focus when I play melee, and I don't remember what happened, and
Mm.
so that it makes it hard to improve because you don't remember what happened. And so in a lot of my drug fox lessons, he'd be like, "Oh, we talked about this like over and over again. You're doing the same thing," and I'm like, "Oh, damn." But and so I'm looking for someone who's a little more patient with me in that regard. But yeah, that's about it. I think like it's good to like it's good to focus on your strengths and try to mitigate your weaknesses, but you can't like beat yourself up for being bad at certain things because I think certain people or everyone is bad at some things and good at some things. So it's good to steer into what you're good at and mitigate, but you still have to obviously mitigate what you're bad at. And the way I did that back in the day was just by forcing myself to do these lessons, and I'm trying to do something similar nowadays.
Mhm.
Hopefully that makes sense.
No, that's a great answer. All right, so that leads me to my next question, which is we talked about some of the strengths and differences, maybe outside the game in terms of analysis. What do you think are some of the strengths that you have inside the game, and what are some of the things that you want to be working on this next couple months?
So my strengths inside the game are kind of just I I'm kind of a creature of habit, and I play I rely on my instincts a lot. So like I just do the thing that my brain tells me to do, for better or for worse, because like it makes me very predictable. I do like the same things a lot of the time over and over and over and over again. But it makes me so consistent because I pick good option here, I pick good option here. I'm not overthinking it. I just do immediately what my brain like goes to. And that makes my movement good. It makes my punish game good, and it makes me a really consistent player. If you look at my results, it feels like, aside from the Fox matchup, or even with the Fox matchup, I like kind of beat. More or less beat the same people, and I lose to the same people. So a lot of top 20 players are like, oh, they have a big win, right? They've got a mango win or they've got an H-box win one time. My biggest win is like Kadoran. But my worst loss is like a top 35 player. And so it's like, wow, my range is like a lot smaller. And it's because I think I just rely on my instincts, and that's kind of it. And that makes me a really consistent player. But it puts me in a little bit of a box where like I'm not like dynamically trying new and interesting options, even in friendlies, because I'm just stuck in my ways, right? And it's really hard to learn if you're not willing to try something, even if it isn't good. Like even if it's not good, it is wise to like be like, is this a good idea? And then try some dumb shit, and then be like, oh, now I know that's not good. But instead, I'm just like, I just want to keep doing this. This is my thing. And so what I'm trying to do is break free of that and try it in friendlies. Be like, let's just try something new. Um, and that's a big thing. And what was I gonna say? Yeah, but in a tournament setting, it's really good to just rely on your instincts. So in terms of improving, I need to I need to work on addressing that. I think it's also like I'm very habit based. I'm very fixated on like the tech chase and things like that. Those are some big weaknesses of mine. And it feels like if I am not in the zone with like, oh, if my movement feels off or my tech chases feel off or my controller is doing whatever, then it feels like I stop focusing on neutral, but instead I should focus on neutral no matter what, right? That should be my primary goal. That's like all I should be putting up my mental energy in, and the rest is secondary. But instead, it seems like for me, It's unfortunately the other way around, and I'm trying to work on that in friendlies. Even if things aren't going my way, let's say I miss like a tech skill thing. What good is it to like try to like tense up and try to have better tech skill? It's not going to work. You should just put your brain energy into something more valuable. And so that's kind of those are the things I've noticed about myself that I want to address. And I think those are my strengths and those are my weaknesses. So yeah.
That's an awesome answer. I really
Mhm.
appreciate that. Leads me
Yeah.
into my next question, which is when researching you, I came across the same thing that you noticed as well, which is that you definitely have like this, sort of stack of players where it's like, okay, I beat these guys and I lose to these guys. There isn't like that high variance that you would see a lot of times in Melee. One of
Mhm.
my interviews was with Swift, and we were talking about variance and how, in a best of five, you might, win some here, lose some here, but you do a great job of consistency. I would love to expand on that a little bit. How are you able to be so consistent while still playing so many tournaments?
Mm. So I think a lot of it, um, I'd love to say like there's some crazy characteristic about me, but I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that um, it's a big weakness of mine that like when I play Melee, a lot of the time I forget everything that's happening. But it's a great strength because it's just my instincts. I'm not thinking so much. I'm doing good options always. Even if they're predictable options, they are still very high reward, low risk options in most situations. And I play Sheik, and Sheik is a very consistent character, except for like Fox can be really hard. But even as a Sheik player, if you know how Ices and Puff work, even those matchups, I feel like I can be quite consistent in. Um, I beat Lunar Dust the past two times we played. I took Slug to game five the two past times we played. Pretty consistent on my end. And the worst Puff loss that I have in the past like 4 years is SDJ, which is like a pretty good loss.
Very good loss.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess you can argue CPU zero at local tournaments, but my record against him is still like really in my favor. But yeah, um, aside from Fox, I think Sheik is a very consistent character inherently. And if you look at my playstyle, it actually is something I'm trying to break free from. My playstyle is very safe and very defensive, and I think it's like I think it stems from me being afraid to take a risk and being wrong.
Hmm.
And so instead I just do um safe, low risk, high reward things that like keep you out. So I'm just like swatting and like, okay, this is like really hard to punish. I'm just gonna keep doing just swatting. And if you run into me, then I get the open up. And if you don't run into me, then there's a problem with like I have to do something about it probably.
Hmm.
But it also helps that most Melee players don't play like that. They just run into me. And but I think that another big thing I need to work on is like taking risks and being okay with being incorrect, as long as the risk reward of the risk that I took is one that I can be like, okay, that was like a reasonable risk to take, and it's okay that I was wrong. Whereas sometimes I'll take a risk and I'm like, that was just a bad risk because like it was really risky and now I'm dying for it and the reward was not that high. Or like the odds of that working were so low that it was not worth doing. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I think it's a combination of a big defense, uh, my brain just not really overthinking, and then the fact that I play Sheik and the fact that I don't get too drained from attending events. I would say all those factors kind of combine to create a very consistent force to be reckoned with. Um, although I do think the rankings aren't very favorable to someone like me. I think they are more favorable to someone who, even if they have like a really bad loss, if they have one big win, it's still a lot better. Like you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Well, that leads me into a couple of questions. First is the Michigan connection question. This is I'm a player from Michigan, and this is where we bring a question from a player in the scene. This one is from
Mhm.
Slick Sawick, our local Chic main.
Oh,
The
yeah, I know
homie.
them.
Yeah, they're super
Yeah.
homie. And they ask, what were some of the things that help you break from like that top 100 player level to, the top 30, top 20 level that you are today?
Hmm. Um. Honestly, I would say it is. I would say the biggest thing was drug fox lessons combined with having like a game plan that made sense, combined with hitting really hard. Um, and then just a lot of hours. Yeah, I think that was it. Like there's like instances of knowledge that really helped me, that I learned from drug fox lessons, and I think without that knowledge, I would just have been in circles forever. And then I just learned how to hit harder. And on top of that, I just kept playing a lot, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Although, well, kind of similar to how I said before, I think like I got kind of lucky because I think melee. Once again, I think melee really rewarded the things I naturally liked doing, and people beat themselves up a lot when they're like, "Oh, why can't I just be like you or be like this players or just a top player in general?" And it's like, well, honestly, I think I just got lucky because the game I decided to play happened to be like, "Oh, you like doing this? This is way more important than that." But if you enjoy something else, then like it's going to be really hard, and I can't sit here and be like, oh, my work ethic is so good because it didn't feel like work to me.
Mm.
Actually, now in my top 20 place, now I'm struggling so hard because the things that I need to do are so hard for me. And so like I can't sit here and act high and mighty like I figured it out, because now I'm being challenged to do things I do not like doing in order to improve. And I
Mm.
think everyone's journey is different. So yeah, but if you were to ask me from top like 100 to top 20, it was the Sammy lessons, the drug fox lessons were really what helped. Um because it's really hard. Like you can only max out your punish game so much. You can only max out your tech skill to a certain degree. You really need that knowledge to break further. I do think even though top 100 is obviously such a respectable thing, I personally feel like I got to top 100 just by being an absolute punish game grinder, tournament grinder, and tech skill grinder. I just like grinded those things to an absurd degree, and I just hit really, really hard, and then I got top 100, and yeah.
I want to ask you a couple questions. So the first one is, this is a sentiment that I've heard so many times from so many incredible players, which is like, hey, how I got to top 100, I grinded tech skill, I grinded punish, I went to a lot of tournaments, made top 100. And
Yep.
it's like, oh, it's that simple. And then I'm a 2-and-2er, right? I'm out here
Mhm.
sweating my ass off, thinking giga brain, I feel like, and I'm not going to be top 100 anytime soon. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
was it really that simple for those type of players? Is that more of an intrinsic thing again, or is that just sort of like, putting down some of the work that you put in, maybe because you
Mhm.
enjoyed it so much?
I will say, like, I played. It's hard because I never like. It's hard because I feel like I just enjoyed playing a lot, and obviously I wanted to make the list or whatever. But
Hmm.
I played so much, and I played like to a degree where like if you don't get energy from this, I don't think anyone can match me, because I just played like when I was in high school, I played like 10 hours a day. I would sleep at 4 a.m. every night and wake up at like 7 for class. Not because I wanted, oh, I want to make this someday. It's not. It had nothing to do with that. It's because I was just hooked on it,
Hmm.
and I don't think anyone who doesn't enjoy it can outwork me in that regard, because I enjoyed it. And so I just like played all the time, and I played so much. And then yeah, it was just an absurd number of hours. And in a way, like I tried analyzing, even though it was really hard for me, and it didn't help because I also didn't know what I was doing. It helped very little. So it felt like running in circles a lot of the time.
Mm.
Um, it did feel like it did feel a little silly, but I can't overstress. Like I put an absurd number of hours in, and honestly, I'm pretty fortunate because I did it at a time where I did not have that many responsibilities. I was in high school. My classes weren't that hard. I was doing fine, and yeah, and also like I could get away with not sleeping. Um, yeah, and it was just okay. So
I
yeah,
feel that. Yeah, my body
Mhm.
cannot do that anymore. That's for damn sure. So,
Yeah.
uh, that leads me to my next question, which is, you were talking about how to get to this level again, you were playing a lot and you were hooked. You've been doing the stuff that you enjoy and you've been struggling with the stuff that you don't enjoy, right? So
Hmm.
I guess my next question is, are you worried that in order to get to that next level, that top 10, top five, winning super majors level, which I'm sure you want to get to, and I'm sure that
Hmm.
you're capable of, are you worried that that's going to diminish the amount of love or the amount of fun that you have for the game?
Honestly, I don't. It's hard because lately it's felt that way, but we're like I get really down on myself because now I'm at a place where it's like, dude, like I lost, but like, how can I even be upset because I didn't have the work ethic I wanted. Now I'm at a place where I'm forced to confront my flaws. But I don't think that's like such a bad thing. I actually think it's a pretty beautiful thing to like you put yourself out there and then you can clearly see the world as like, look, man, you know what you had to do and you didn't do it. And you are going to have to confront that and you're going to have to face the fact that like you failed to do what you wanted to do. And I think it's beautiful to like be forced to confront your flaws and try to overcome them because I honestly think most human beings in this world don't have to do that ever, right?
Hmm.
This world is kind of about in every other aspect other than competing in a tournament. It's all about who you know rather than what you know, right? I got this job because I know this person. I have these connections, so I was able to do this. Even with commentary or with like certain things in the community, it's more about who you know rather than what you know. But the one time where it's not about that is when you're in a tournament setting. It doesn't matter if you're Mango, it doesn't matter if you're Hungry Box. If I push buttons better than you push buttons, then I'm going to win. And I think that's really beautiful because it's one of the only aspects in life where you're forced to confront like your flaws head on and be like, look, I just have to stare myself in the face and be like, I wasn't good enough. I tried and I wasn't good enough. And I could have worked harder. I could have worked smarter and I just didn't. And I have to confront that and be better next time or I have to give up.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think there's something beautiful in that, honestly. I wouldn't have it any other way than me, like, now even though it's up until this point, I've kind of been coasting, doing the things I enjoy doing. Now I have to be like, I have to sit down and be like, okay, I really need to like change my approach. Even though like my ego is like, I got this far doing this. Why can't I just keep doing it? It's like, no, you have to confront that and be like, okay, I have to change everything at this point because it's not working anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really, really pretty. I love how you put that. There's a quote that I listened, I think it was on either Foresight Fights or Radio Melee or some shit like that. But it was a fiction quote that said like doing something that makes you uncomfortable intrinsically is usually good for you. And I feel like
Hmm.
Melee sort of does that for me, where like I
Hmm.
said, like even from the get-go, I never really played video games as a kid, and like I don't really like I try to like keep to myself more, but it's forced me to be more sociable. It's forced me to grind and learn and study in ways. And I agree with you. I think that uncomfortability is a beautiful because we get to do it in such a low stakes arena. Like at
Yeah.
the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what place I get at a tournament. My mama is still
Yeah.
gonna love me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm still gonna go to work or go to college or whatever we do, right? But
Mhm.
but we can put the stakes on it and the onus on it to get better. And so I really like what you're saying there. Um, I guess another question then would be, how do you balance that idea of uncomfortableness with the idea of tournament results, tournament placings, and rankings? Because, you know, only you know your story or what you're working on. Whereas,
Mhm.
the tournament, the start GG is going to say what place you got, and the rankings are going to,
Yeah.
well, those are more nebulous, but,
Mhm.
they're going to be more cut and dry. Does that, like, do rankings play a part in that role, or do you just try to get better every day? What's your mindset on that?
Hmm. Yeah, I think for everyone, like it doesn't feel good when you get a number attached to your name that is worse than the number it used to be, and that's never gonna not hurt. But I don't know. I feel like I'm on my journey. If I think about it, if I really confront myself and I say like, because my goal, I don't know about other people, but my goal is just to be the best because I know I can be the best. I think when I look at who the best is, I'm like, I can beat these people. I've beaten them before. It's not like maybe that would be different in an avenue like chess or something where there's so much money that there's someone who is like who seems otherworldly. But at least right now, I feel like everyone is beatable, and um, obviously it doesn't feel good to like get a worse number, and it really does make you feel. And same with results, like you're like, wow, I didn't get the result I wanted, and you kind of have to deal with that, and you kind of have to confront like, did I do everything I could? Did I work as smart or as hard as I could? But honestly, I look at myself and I see like I do really bad at these majors, and I think, well, what is my work ethic right now? Um, I want to be the best in the world, and so even if I won that set or whatever, and I just lost the set right afterwards, I'm still far from where I want to be. It doesn't really matter in that regard. And like, so I kind of just have to sit there and just be like, what is my work ethic? Am I acting in a way that the best in the world someday like would have this work ethic? And if the answer is no, I have to keep refining my process because I'm not going to get to where I want to be. Even if I won that set, who cares? I probably would have lost the next fucking set anyway. If I really want to get to where I want to be, then you need your process to be better. You can't just like have these bursts of like, I'm going to play today. I'm going to play this day. You need like a very disciplined, deliberate process like to slowly but surely eventually get there. And that's really hard for me because I'm going to be honest, like I never had to do that my whole life. Not to toot my own horn, but in school, like I did pretty well for myself. In high school, I got straight A's. In college, I did pretty well as well. And I got like, and even in a major as hard as computer science, like I also did these things like I have pretty bad ADHD and I can't really focus until my back is against the wall. There's a gun to my head. There's like, okay, the assignment is literally due in 3 hours. You stayed up all night. It's 4 a.m. Go. And I actually succeeded. I think a lot of people are forced to change their ways when they're put in that situation. Like it's 4 a.m, right? Your assignment's due at 7 a.m. You're fucked, right? But I kind of clutched it every time, even in college. And so I was forced to live a life of like, I can just do it. I don't actually have to have like good habits because I can just pull it off anyway. But Melee is the one time where it's like, dude, if you just wait until the last minute, if you wait till right before the tournament to try to like cram some studying, you're just not gonna be the best in the world. And so like even if my number is slightly worse this year, like I switched to Z jump, and that was kind of the hardest time in my life because it was a very bad decision. It made me do worse by a lot for 6 months straight, and then at the end of it, I just switched off of Z jump, so it was a waste of time. And my ranking went down by like 10, and I was like, wow, this sucks. And then now the new rankings, my ranking went back up like by another 10. So actually, in 4 years, I've only improved by 1 rank. So I'm not like, but I'm not really tripping because at the end of the day, I need my work ethic to be like much, much better. And I'm not going to get to where I want to be unless I do that. So you kind of have to take a step back and look at things like from a day-to-day process perspective. Instead of being like, oh, I just want that one win. If I just get that one win, then I'll be happy. And it's like, no, you're just going to be the same fucking guy who doesn't work that hard, even if you get that one win. Look, I'll be honest, I'm going to keep it a buck. If I played Marth, I think I'd be beating a lot of these top 10 species. And that's just a fact. Yeah. I would be cheesing a lot of these wins, but instead I play Sheik and I lose to them every time. But at the end of the day, my Marth would just lose to Left and Sheik or like Plup. And it's just, there's no breaking free of the fact that if you don't work hard enough consistently, you're not going to get there. So you can't really obsess over the small numbers, the little details. Oh, my ranking only went up by 1. I wanted it to be up by 2 because then I'd be top 20, but instead I'm top 21. Yeah. Like, dude, who cares? You're trying to be the best in the world. So yeah, anyway, I'm rambling, but yeah.
No, this is great. That's what people want to hear. They want to hear you talk. Yeah. I definitely understand what you're saying, where there's just no easy way. You can't just pick someone, or you can't just like, I watched one VOD or one fiction lesson and figure it out, right? You just have to put in that hard work. It's interesting how you said, outside, in terms of, your CS major or, high school, you're able to clutch it out. I feel like I was sort of the same way as well. Like it would be like last day I got to write a 10-page paper. Let's get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, are you trying to put that work ethic in other areas in your life, or do you think you just want to focus on Melee and keep it writing for the rest of the stuff?
Um, you mean like with the work ethic I'm trying to have, like
Sure,
trying to
yeah.
develop?
Like
Yeah.
for example, like I'm doing my PhD now and I realized very quickly like, okay, I actually have to like
Mhm.
space things
Yeah.
out. You know what I mean? But it would definitely sucked to learn that. And
Yeah.
so like I was wondering if that's something that you've found in other aspects of your life, or is it just
Mhm.
Melee specific?
Um, I've only found it with Melee currently,
Mm-hmm.
but like there are aspects of my life that down the line I really do want to like improve on. Um, there's like so many things. Like I'm interested in reading a lot, and there are a lot of things I want to read, and so I want to revisit speed cubing and performing magic, and all of these things that I'm really passionate about. And I think that the reason that these things fell by the wayside for me is because of Melee, but also because even when I didn't have Melee, I didn't have like the discipline and the work ethic to really pursue these things and juggle them all. And down the line, someday, a big dream of mine is to make a video game. And so that's another thing where I feel like you really need to like have certain habits and certain skills in order to do something of that magnitude. Especially if you like, I can't really make a video game on my own alone unless I'm financially like stable enough to where it doesn't matter how the game does, right? I don't
Yeah.
want to. I'm definitely not gonna like make a game and expect it to pay my bills or whatever, right? So like all these things where like it's teaching me that like everything that you want in life that's like meaningful and interesting and valuable, it's on the other side of like developing the habits and skills to like um be able to chase it with a chance. Otherwise, you're just gonna get owned. But yeah, currently I am just going all in on Melee and trying to be good at Melee. I'm also like, to pay the bills, I'm making controllers for people. I'm doing lessons, things like that. And that's pretty fun, but I don't think that challenges me in that way. Like I have so many controllers to make by the end of the month, but it's sort of like school all over again, where like if the deadline is close, I know I'm gonna do it, right?
Yeah.
It's not something that's like really challenging me. Like you can't just wait until the last minute to do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
You yeah, nothing really challenges me in that way, especially with Melee, where like Melee is so stressful because it's so a lot of, especially when you get to a high level, like it's so nebulous because you're like, I don't even know what I need to do to get better. I'm just
Mm.
losing and I don't know how or why. And then you watch, like, I'm like, oh, I'll watch Jmook. That guy wins. And then I watch it and I'm like, what the fuck am I looking at? And then I watch myself and I'm like, dude, why did I do that? I'm dog shit. But how do I actually get better from watching these things? Also, it really hurts to watch myself get owned. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard because, like, you don't actually know what you need to do exactly anymore. Whereas before with Melee, at least it'd be like, yeah, I didn't hit very hard. I didn't like. I should probably L cancel that, and it's like that makes sense, right? But
Yeah.
now it's very nebulous. It's very confusing. And with school, it's the same way where like it's not. It's pretty easy to know what you're supposed to do in school. You just do like what they want you to do. It's not like an open ended problem where you have to like try to solve it, but it does sometimes it doesn't even feel like you know what you need to do at all, and it feels really frustrating because you put all this effort. And you're like, what if it doesn't pan out? What if I don't learn anything? What if it's a waste of time? But yeah.
So how do you deal with that frustration and that angst that comes from that? I mean, I'm sure that that puts pressure on you. You have a
Mm-hmm.
public perception on you already. Um,
Yeah.
like, how do you deal with that? Especially since you do compete and put yourself out on the line a lot. How do you deal
Mm-hmm.
with, like dealing with a fox that gets you on the upset, or dealing with,
Yeah.
you watch a VOD and you're like, what the hell was I doing? This is
Yeah.
bullshit.
Uh, what I tell myself is like, look, you cannot control anything that happens. Even if like you feel like you played a 0 out of 10 or anything like that, there are factors you can like look at and try to address next time. And you can also like, what was I gonna say? So it doesn't like you'll constantly be telling yourself like what's the point of watching my losses? Like, what if I don't even? There's a chance that I don't learn anything from watching it, and it's so painful. And the answer is yes. There is a chance that you will watch your VOD and learn absolutely nothing. But you still have to watch your VOD so you can be like, I did it. Or you have to be like, I'm going to do this for 2 hours. I'm going to study this for 2 hours today. And then you can at least say you did the thing that you wanted to do, instead of focusing on like learning from it. You have to be like, I put in this amount of hours and I appreciate myself inherently for just doing something that was hard instead of doing something that like I'm doing this because I like really need this to matter. Because you need to be like, oh, every day I'm gonna put in this amount of effort, or like today I'm gonna put this amount of effort, and I need to consistently do that with the hopes that it will add up. Even if your analysis does nothing, it at least teaches you how to have the discipline to analyze, or at least try to. And it probably makes your analysis itself better, even if it didn't actually teach you anything about the game. So you have to like sit down and be like, it's just about the effort I put in. Even if I can't control how I do, if I sit down and I put in a certain amount of effort and I can be proud of the effort I put in, that's all that matters. And then in the future, it will add up and you keep like doing that in a way that like, so in the future, as long as you keep doing that, eventually what you want will happen. It's like pretty hard because it's hard not to get caught up in like the results of it all. Like I studied a decent amount. Like I'm not good at watching my losses, but I did watch my losses recently at at SmashCon. I lost to Panda, game 5, and then I watched my VOD. And then 1 week later, or 2 weeks, I went to Shine and I lost 3-0 to Panda. And so it's like, dude, like it's probably pretty demoralizing, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But at the end of the day, like if I need to like just buckle up and just like be proud of like I watched the loss and I put in this amount of effort, and that's okay. And then you just keep going forward, and you can't like get caught up in like, oh, this shit isn't like working. And even if it's not working, you can like reevaluate your process. But as long you need a process, and you need to have some hours to put in so that you can look back and be like, I did put in some effort. All I have to do is like figure out how to address it, how to alter it, blah blah blah. Anyway, hopefully that makes sense.
Definitely makes sense. Great answer. This is maybe more a philosophical question, or maybe a statement that I would love you to, talk about, which is, I definitely think that a lot of Melee players struggle, no matter what level, watching their VODs, especially after a loss. At first I thought maybe, this is a sentiment that I've heard from many top players too. And, maybe I thought, because, the lights were bright and stuff, they don't want to watch that because it relives the pressure. But then I realized, even at my local, I hate watching myself lose. Like, it hurts. There was one thing that Lod said on my stream once, and he said that for him, Melee is like a performance. And I feel maybe that's sort of the same way for a lot of people intrinsically, because if you have like a bad, like let's say you play the flute and you just like bombed, like you just missed all the notes, and then you got to go watch that again in order to get better, it would suck to watch, right? I mean, exactly, is that some of the same feeling that you have when you have to go watch your VODs?
Yeah, it's a terrible feeling. It feels really, really bad. I feel like it's very painful, and people don't really talk about how painful it is, as much as like it really is. And I think a lot of people, in all honesty, even the best players in the world, a lot of them don't watch their VODs ever. And for many years, that was me. Like, I'd be like, I'm just going to watch Jmu because that guy wins. I'm not going to watch like me lose. But at the end of the day, it's like, it would be very valuable if you did that. And I talked to Zane about this, and Zane told me that like he watches it once, no analysis required. He just watches it. And he watches it so that he can get through the pain. And then once the pain is finally gone, now he can analyze it. And I think that's a really good approach that not a lot of people have thought of or do, where like, look, you take it step by step. You don't have to analyze it right away. What if you just watched it and then you kind of like ease your way into the pain and suffering? And this is what all like athletes have to do, but we're not really equipped to do that, a lot of us, because like, even though we say, it's an esport, it's hard to like really grasp the fact that like this is real and it's like very, very emotionally draining. And like if you play a sport, you do not want to watch the fucking game where you lost, right? But like if you want to be the best fucking whatever sport player in the world, you probably have to, right? Like
Mhm.
you have to improve in like all these dynamic ways. It's very similar to Melee where like if you want to improve at a sport, sometimes you're just like, dude, I don't even know what I could do to get better, especially if you're already very good. Like it's very dynamic and confusing and you have to attack it from all these different avenues and hope one of them makes sense where like you don't even know what you need to do to get better. But
Mhm.
I think the big thing is like you have to. I wouldn't say you have to, but I would say it is ultimately always very valuable to watch your own VODs. And it would make your life a lot easier in the long run if you did that. And I think Zane's strategy is fantastic of just easing your way into it. Hopefully
Yeah.
that made sense.
No, that's definitely
Mhm.
interesting because one of the guys who helps coach me negative out here, he says
Mm.
like the best thing you can do is just like immediately after you lose, just go watch your VOD. Don't think about it, just go watch it because you're gonna be pissed or sad or whatever. And then like in a week or like then you can think about analysis. But if you just get over like it's like putting your toe in the cold water in the pool first, it's like
Yeah,
this sucks,
exactly.
but then it's like all right, it's not that bad. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's definitely a little interesting. I usually this is switching topics a little bit. I usually cover the macro, the stuff inside and out of melee. But I am a little bit of like a melee nerd. I love watching vods. I love talking about matchups and stuff. So I'll ask you one matchup question, which
Mhm.
is again you have this incredible consistency. But even in this interview, you've talked about the Fox matchup. What
Yeah.
can you just give me a couple things that just frustrate you about the Fox matchup and why, you think that you're not as consistent in that matchup? Because I mean, the players that
Yeah.
you're losing to are still incredible players. I mean, these guys are four stocking me day in and out while talking to their friends. So it's not like you're losing to
Yeah.
scrubs by any means.
Mhm.
But it's definitely something that I could tell is like, in your heart. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. Yeah. The biggest things for me that make Fox really hard are I think that the first thing is obviously the tech chase. I feel like if you cannot tech chase, then this is something I struggle with because I think I get too hung up on trying to be perfect.
Hmm.
So Plub wins against Fox with only a few reaction tech chases. He does easier things and he goes for reads sometimes and he makes it work. Jmook wins by only tech chasing. Um, but if you notice, like in his most recent set with Aklo, he could not tech chase and he lost game 5, right? If you watch that, I would say that was the biggest reason why Jmook lost was just because he would get a grab and he would get shined, or he would at least drop it. And like even for someone like Jmook, it's really hard to be like, okay, I'm not tech chasing today. I need to fucking stop and do
Hmm.
something else. Because in the moment, you're like, oh, but maybe if I just focused more, maybe if I just really buckled down, calmed myself down, this time I'll get the tech chase. Or maybe like I just like wave dash too late, or I did this and this was wrong. I can get it next time for sure. But if you mess up the tech chase, you die. You grabbed them and you're the one that died. And it's like that's pretty stupid. Um so that's the biggest one for me. The second one is defense against like being juggled out of the air. This is a big issue I have because I am pretty bad at SDI and I've been working on that. It's pretty hard on a GameCube controller and it's pretty hard for Sheik in particular. And it requires like very good understanding of like, oh, Fox's position is here, so this SDI would be great, the best, and like all these things. And on gaming controller, realistically, you can only get one SDI, in my opinion. Although you give me a box and I'm out of there every single time. But yeah, and then when you get juggled by Fox, like I personally get down in a very greedy way. I like Whereas if you watch Jmook, he like expertly floats like a gazelle with no fear, and he like doesn't even fast fall, and he drifts, and he doesn't do an aerial, and he empty lands, and he shields, and then he gets down. I'm just like, shit, I'm like really high up. I'm just going to down air from the sky like a greedy boy. And then they read it and I die. And I'm like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that. But it works sometimes and then they die. So I really wanted it to work. And that's another thing. And then finally, edge guarding is pretty damn hard, and I'm not amazing at it. Also, if you mess up the edge guard, you die. Whereas there's a lot of matchups where if you mess up, it resets to neutral. But in Sheik versus Fox, it feels like in every situation, if you mess up, you're the one that dies, even though you were the one hurting them, which is really very disturbing. Now, finally, the reason I have a big issue with Fox is because I think as Sheik, all of her matchups, most of the time, are like you kind of solve things. Like, oh, versus this character, I do this option here, and this is very good, and I play the space game with this web of options. Versus Fox, it's like, number one, center stage is very important, and I have been neglecting that. I'm scared, and I always default to like running away, even when I have center, which is not something that's good. Another thing is like I will try to do things that like solve Fox, but you cannot solve Fox. Does that make sense? I will forward tilt, and then I'll get my forward tilt beaten, and I'm like, what the fuck? What could I have done? The answer is boost grab. But then if you boost grab and they attack you at that time, then you die anyway. And you have to be okay with just playing 50-50s and playing rock, paper, scissors. And my brain is always like, I need to solve this. I need to I need to minimize risk and maximize reward. But you can't really fight Fox with that. You need to just be like, balls to the wall, and you got to be like, yeah, man, I'm just gonna fucking boost grab, and if it doesn't work, it's fine. I'm gonna F tilt, and if they read it, I'm gonna die. But if I get it, you're gonna die. And you just have to the whole game be like risk, and then like that's what makes the matchup doable for Sheik. Is you take all these risks. If you hit me, so be it. Hit me as hard as you can. If I hit you, great. Now I have to do the world's hardest tech chase, and I get kind of up in my feelings about this because my Marth tech chases so well because Marth's tech chase is a lot easier than Sheik's.
Yeah.
And even though Sheik is the tech chase character, Sheik's tech chase is very, very hard because of ambiguous DI on the down throw. Under 25%, if you don't do a perfect air dodge on the wave dash, your body covers up Fox's tech in place animation, so you can't even react to it. And then after 25%, you still have to get the right wave dash angle. You have to wave dash at the right time. All of these things. It's just really hard. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel that. Well, that leads me into one more question, which is I saw, on the stream that you were doing like a best or a first to 10 with Zamu with the Marth. Is that something that because, now these days people are always talking about counter picks. People are always talking about bringing out the backup. Are you thinking about bringing out the man with the sword for that matchup? Or do you think that's more nebulous or for fun?
Honestly, yeah, I am thinking about it. That's the short answer is I am thinking about it. I'm not sure where I'm at right now because it's hard because my Marth is actually like, on some days, I swear my Marth is already better than my Sheik, and I don't even practice Marth, and it's like that kind of sucks. But I've lost to so many Foxes, and like I keep thinking, okay, next time I'm gonna do better. Next time, and it's like there comes a point where like this matchup is fucking hard, and like even if down the line I do want to do a Sheik, my heart kind of belongs to Sheik. I have the most fun with her. I think she's so interesting. And I think Sheik Fox is so interesting. I'm just not good at it. And so maybe there comes a point where like I should just, be like okay with trying this character that like it's easier, make my life easier because I'm kind of stuck right now between a rock and a hard place where like I have focused only on the Fox matchup for actually like most of the past like 2 years. And it's pretty bad to like not see any results from that, right?
Yeah.
But something I noticed about myself is when I practice other matchups, I actually do improve. I studied Falco for 1 day. I played with Magi and I was doing really well. I studied Marth for 1 day and I 3-0'd Kadorian at Wisdom. I studied Peach for 2 days and I beat Polish the past 2 times we played. And I'm like, wow, maybe I'm not such a loser after all. Maybe Fox is just really, really hard.
Yeah.
So I kind of just realized, like, okay, like, Fox is just a really hard matchup. And if I put all my effort into Fox and I don't see results, I also lose to Peach, Falcon, Marth, Falco, because I don't put any effort into those matchups. So it's like stuck between these two things. If
Mm,
and you can solve them in two ways. I could either just put all of my effort into the non-Fox matchups and I would see results. So at least I could beat those characters. Um, because it's pretty stupid to be like, I practice Fox the whole weekend and I lose to Fox anyway. And then I lose to a different character because I don't practice that matchup.
yeah.
So I should at least either practice those matchups or I should practice Fox and actually get better versus Fox, which I know I will do if I play Marth, because my Marth is like seeing results very, very quickly. Like in money matches, I've beaten many top 100 Spaceys, Fox and Falco. And it's like, wait, what am I doing?
Hmm.
I could just do this. And so I'm very tempted. I'm also tempted by the box. I'm getting very good on my frame one very quickly, but it feels kind of dirty. It feels like cheating. Like I can SDI every Fox up there, and I can't even SDI like one on the Game View controller. And it's like, well, now it comes down to can do I feel like it's okay, like morally, to use this controller? So I'm stuck with all these little things and like swarming around my head. So the long and short of it is I'm testing the waters and seeing like maybe I should try it. Currently, I'm thinking I probably should try Marth at least for FD only,
Hmm.
and then down the line see where that takes me, right? And
Yeah.
I think it's worth trying out after so many years of kind of just trying and failing. I can't just beat myself up forever. It's hard to you know, the matchup is Sheik Fox is just really hard, and I'm sure I could have better analysis. I could have better studying. I could have better this. I could have better that. But it's just still really hard.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I at least want a reason to study the other matchups, because I am actually studying. If I study those matchups, I actually do see results. So, yeah, that's the short answer. Even though
That
that was a really long answer.
no, it was
Yeah.
awesome. No, I'm very
Yeah.
interested. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very interested to see what you decide. Either of those options.
Mm-hmm.
Switching it up a little bit, we talked a little about controllers. I'm not gonna get into box versus that. You know, it's
Yeah.
already been spoken on so much, but I do want to touch a little
Yeah.
bit about your role in controller modding. You do make some
Mm-hmm.
very good controllers. I believe
Mm-hmm.
I think Zane gets his
Yeah,
controller.
same.
Let's go. So a little plug for you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
There's some good
a little bit.
controllers, you know. You know, it must be pretty good if he's playing on them. How did
Yep.
you start in that? Is that something that you enjoy, or is that something that you did like out of necessity for your, back in
Mm.
the day it was so hard to get good controllers?
Yeah. I do enjoy it. Actually, from very early on, in my Smash career, I noticed like controller issues when nobody else noticed. Like I'm talking like back in the day before anyone talked about dash back, shield drop. I noticed that my controller could not dash back, and I noticed different controllers were so much worse at dash back than than other controllers. And I was like, dude, why is nobody talking about this? And then I noticed snapback, and I was like, why is this controller? Because this is before we discovered capacitors.
Hmm.
But some controllers had POD, which let you dash back, and it also got rid of snapback. So I was like, why is this controller not doing that reverse needle thing and also the accidental double jump thing? But this controller does. Like, what is the deal with that? And then with shield dropping, I was like, why can this controller shield drop, but this one can't? I didn't realize it was the notch value. I thought it was like the tightness of the stick or something. I had no idea why, but I noticed these things early on. And then I noticed early on, like when we discovered capacitors, like we soldered it, or my friend soldered it, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I was terrible at I couldn't solder. I was like, I'm too scared of this. But then down the line, I learned more and more, and I was so I think it goes back to like it kind of reflects in my gameplay. I'm very like obsessive. Like I want my perfect tech chase. I want perfect this. I want perfect tech skill. I want perfect that. And in the same way, I feel so much wrong with every controller. Like I feel every little detail that's wrong with it. Like I'm like, oh, this shell is chafing me, and because of the faceplate and the shell doesn't match up, or this shell is creaky. The stick box here is like slightly stripped from being like over screwed in. I can feel it. This is wrong. This is wrong. The capacitance, the potentiometers are too warm. The capacitance on this is too high, and that's why I'm getting this. And I'm like a freak. I like notice everything. It's
Hmm.
absurd. And and I actually live with Violence, another
Oh,
very
okay.
respected controller modder, and
Oh yeah.
he's the one that actually in the past 2 years taught me how to solder like all these things, capacitors, resistors, and solder new potentiometers. And now I'm like pretty good at soldering, and I decided like this is actually really fun, and I'm really good at it, and I feel like I can help a lot of people because I think it's really hard to find good controllers. Not to throw shade, but I think there are some that I've seen like where like there are from modders that people know and respect, but I'm like I hold this controller and I'm like, oh, I don't like this, and so and I'm like, but I think I can make really good controllers that people will like. And currently, I am kind of OEM pilled. I think OEMs are really good, and I think FOBs are like still good, but like have a ways to go. Especially like if you want to keep it simple and you want to minimize like the chance of like weird things happening. I think OEMs are a really great way to go, especially if you prioritize things like pivots and things like that.
Yeah.
And so I just like I focused on making really clean OEMs, and luckily it seems like people like them. Like Zane has already bought 5 for me, and I think that's the only controller. The only controllers he uses in tournaments now are made by me.
That's
And
awesome.
it's really nice of him that he like I actually have a lot more orders now that he made that tweet, and so that's really cool of him. That especially because I'm trying to as a melee player who is not top 5 or whatever, it's pretty hard financially to like try to make the melee thing work. So it's pretty cool of him to give me the plug. But
Definitely. Yeah. Well, if anyone's watching this, the millions who listen to the Items on
yeah,
podcast, go check
yeah,
out Sparks controllers.
hell yeah.
I wanted to touch a little bit because we talked about the financial a little bit. Egg Dog, shout out to the homies in Washington,
Mhm.
sponsoring a lot of people right now.
Yeah.
How did you get in contact with them, and how did that relationship form? Because it's so awesome that they're
Um,
doing that.
yeah, it really is awesome. I can't thank them enough for everything that they're doing. They help so much with just everything. Um, and Zamu and I are the only like Egg Dog players who are like sponsored by them as on a consistent basis. Other than that,
Hmm.
they sponsor players for specific tournaments. Um, and so that was it. I flew to Invincible, a tournament, a regional tournament, and I booked like a silly flight because it was cheaper. And then Zamu rescued me because it was in Illinois and it was like very far from the Wisconsin tournament. And so he helped me. He picked me up. We were in the car, and he's like, "Dude, like I'm talking with Egg Dog, and I think I'm gonna get sponsored." And I'm like, "Whoa!" And I was like, "You think I should reach out?" And he was like, "Yeah, you should." So I slid in the DMs, and I was like, "Hey, what are the vibes?" And then we just worked something out, and yeah, I couldn't be happier. I'm really happy with it. So
That's awesome to hear. Shout out to Egg Dog for sponsoring all the homies. It's awesome. I mean, I just saw
yeah,
KJH just got sponsored for Big House, which is sick. So anytime you sponsor a
yeah,
Michigan homie, I'm down with. I'm gonna buy something. You know what I mean? So
yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's honestly really cool of them. Like it's clear that they just really love melee and the inherent joy they get from helping people who are chasing melee is just valuable to them, and I couldn't thank them enough because it's clear that they're just doing it for the love of it, you know.
yeah, for
Mhm.
sure,
So,
for
mhm.
sure. So shout out to them.
Mhm.
I think my last melee question before I ask you some stuff outside of melee before we wrap up, which is
Mhm.
um I guess has to do with like public perception and legacy. Something that I usually ask all of my interviewees, which is, especially when you get to the level that you are and you've been around so long and been on so many stream on tournaments, there's this public perception of you and a narrative of you that you don't really get to set, that other people get to
Mhm.
set, especially in the day of social media. What are your thoughts on that? And do you think that you're represented fairly? And if not, how do you think you want to be represented in the media or in the melee community in general?
Um, yeah, I think that is definitely a thing. I don't know how it started. I think it's because early on I I definitely played it don't get me wrong, it definitely had to do with how I played the game. But also like my whole smash the record thing where I just like I try harded against Plups Dr. Mario and then I won the tournament and then people got mad at that because it was a charity tournament. Um and then uh and then just like my play style is like very like I just try to be perfect and I also play very safe and I just stick to by the book things. And I also think that colored uh my playstyle in a certain way. On top of the fact that I um just like how people see me in general, I'm a little bit of a goober. Like I'm definitely a dweeby guy. So I think like that all kind of formed together and made this narrative that like that like Spark is the lame one, but he's efficient and stuff. And I don't think that's like super true. I do think the way I play neutral is pretty like not risky, and I can definitely see that. But I do think with my punishes, at least over the past like 2 3 years, they've definitely gotten a lot more like dynamic, and I think people have kind of failed to acknowledge that because of like the past and the way I was colored in the beginning. Um, so yeah, but honestly, I don't think it's like a big deal. I'm not like tripping about it, but I do think it's interesting.
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel like, especially if you've been in the scene for a while, you get something stuck to you. Like Aklo has
Mhm.
still like people saying, "Oh, he plays lame" or whatever. I was like, "Bro, have you watched a
Yeah.
VOD from him?" Like,
Yeah.
I enjoy watching your VODs, so I don't care what anyone says.
Ah, I
But
appreciate
you
it.
know what I mean. I
Mhm.
think people are sort of tripping on that, so I wanted to ask you on it. Moving on a little bit, I always touch on stuff outside of melee. You touched on magic, and I want to get into that a little bit. I think
Man.
magic is hype. We had kids at our school who did like magic, and it would just be like we would be like the lunch tables, and then like one guy would just
Yeah.
come in and just do like a magic trick. We would pop off like it was Stomp
Yeah.
Knee in 2005. You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
he would go do his thing, and we'd go play basketball or some shit. It was so hype. And so I'm wondering, like, do you still do magic? Do you like, are you still interested in that, in the performative side? Like, what got you into that? Love to learn more.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely do. Honestly, at a lot of majors, I try to show at least one to a couple of people. I think at Gommel at the after party at like 4 in the morning, I showed a couple people a couple card tricks, and it was fun. It's cool to always keep that side of me around. Um, Usually, it's like a card trick involving some sleight of hand. So I'll like show you a card, or like you pick a card, and then like I'll mix it in the deck, or you mix it in the deck, and then I take a different card, and I'm like, that's not your card, right? And then I snap my fingers, and it changes into your card, or something like that. Um, and yeah, I do want to keep that part of me, and I think at least whenever I can find time, hopefully I can like try to improve on it. Although I do think I'm at a good skill level right now where I can show people stuff. It's cool to be in the Smash community where people already know and like me, so it kind of makes it way easier to just go up to someone and show them a magic trick. So yeah. Mhm.
That's awesome. I think that's
Uh,
beautiful.
I guess I didn't answer how I got into it.
Yeah, how did you
Um,
do that?
I got into it. I think when I was 12 in eighth grade, yeah, um, or 13. I saw like a YouTube video. It's like a very. It was two YouTube videos, very famous ones. One's called like I think it's like the best card trick in the world, and one's called like this, that, and the other.
Hmm.
Um, and both of those tricks, I was like fucking mind blown. And in both of those videos, they don't show you how the trick is done.
Mm.
They just show you like the performance. And I was like, dude, how the fuck did he do that? That has to be video editing, right? And then like I scoured and like honestly, at the time, YouTube was pretty good at like keeping that shit under wraps. But nowadays, it's like you can find that shit if you want to figure out how to do it. You can find it. But even back then, I like did enough digging, and I figured out like someone on the world's like two view video like how to do it, and then I figured it out, and then I practiced it myself, and I got like. What's funny is at first I thought I was good at it, but I was terrible. So I showed like my brother, and he was like, "Dude, I just saw exactly what you did," and I was like, "Fuck." And then I just kept practicing, and then finally I was like, "Okay, I'm good enough. I can show people at school," and I showed them at school. But I made the error of like, I was like, so now that I can do this and I can fool someone, surely I could just do it infinity times to the same person, and then there'll be no problems, right? And the
Hmm.
answer is no. You should not show them the same trick over and over and over and over again because they're gonna figure it out. So yeah, definitely a learning process, but yeah, that's how it all started.
Dude, that is awesome. I'm sure the first time like you went to school that day with like the deck of
Yeah,
cards, you're probably like the heart was racing. It's like, all right, today, like I'm gonna
yeah,
show some sick shit. Like that's awesome,
yeah.
dude. The other thing you mentioned was speed cumin. Correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Because I don't have the best memory, but I believe that you did a stream once when like the
Mhm.
wobbling discourse
Yeah,
was
yeah.
where you finished a Rubik's Cube while wobbling.
Yeah.
I thought it was the nastiest thing I've ever seen. I was like, this guy is a savant, dude. Like, what?
Yeah.
Dude, how do you learn how to do that shit? I'm sure it's on YouTube now and stuff, but like, I mean, I see people finishing that stuff in like 6 seconds. I'm like, these people are not human.
Oh man, yeah. Honestly, like, the big thing is like there are different methods. So first you learn the beginner method, and then like a couple months down, you can learn like the expert method. It just requires more memorizing, and then you also learn finger tricks. So you can turn the cube like this with your wrist. But when you want to do up and down inputs, you can just like use your fingers, but to flick them instead of like wristing. So then you end up like being able to go really, really fast.
So you're doing multiple like moves at the same time then, basically.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
I got the cube here. Let me just.
Oh my god, dude.
So we got the cube here, right?
Let's go.
So, so you can turn like right and left like this. So if I go like right, and then but if I want to do up, I can go like that, and then down with your wrist, and then up like that. So then you can just go really, really fast.
That still is crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I thought you were just going random. Yo, okay. For the people on Spotify, he just randomly mixed it up and then did it perfectly again, like 5 seconds. And I'm popping off. Like, that was crazy, bro. I still think that shit is sick, dude. I don't care, like, oh, kids can do it, or I still think it's so tight, dude.
Yeah, it is sick. And honestly, like, I was pretty, even though I got really good at it, like, with two hands, like, I didn't, like, get, like, I couldn't do it with one hand at all. I was like, this is too hard. But I watched one YouTube video and I told myself, you know what? Let's not discount it so quickly. Let's take it one step at a time. It was on a carpool to the Mango from NorCal to SoCal. So it's like a 7-hour drive.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm just going to do these 4 moves over and over again. Like right, up, down, and like this. Like just like that. And I'm going to do that with one hand for the whole car ride. And then, like, at first I was like, dude, this hurts. This hurts my fucking hand. Yeah. And then, like, as 7 hours went by, I'm like, dude, I'm cooking. And then now I'm just like, I can just do it. And then I was like, wait, you can actually wobble pretty easily by just putting, once you start wobbling, you put the stick against your thigh so that it holds forward. And then you can wobble with one hand. And I was like, dude, it's time. I'm going to solve the cube with one hand while wobbling. That's the dream. But yeah,
dude, that shit put the nail in the coffin for wobbling. Once I saw that, I was like, it's over for wobblers.
You know what's crazy is I actually want wobbling to be legal.
Really?
Yeah, because I think like it doesn't matter how easy it is. I think like they deserve to kill you off of grabbing you, even though it's really annoying. And it's really annoying, especially for like not the top level, because like they're just like, dude, you just shield grab me and I'm dead, and it takes forever. It also takes like 15 seconds, or you're just sitting there.
Yeah.
And I get that it's like really, it's discouraging. It's not fun. I get all these things, but at the top level, dude, like they deserve to kill me off of grabbing me. And I wish also like without wobbling, Sheik Ice is the exact same matchup, but everyone else gets to be happy. Everyone else is like, oh, dude, their grab doesn't do anything anymore because if you're not near the edge of the stage, Nana's throws are RNG, so there's a 50% chance you can't hand off unless you're near the ledge. So Nana's you just can't like hurt them as bad. Yeah. But the Sheik matchup, you just chain grab them to Sheik to death. So it's like it's the same matchup with Sheik. Why does everyone else get to be happy? Everyone else gets to be slugged by just like not even remembering how to fight ICs. Why do I have to suffer?
That is so funny, dude. I one of the homies at Michigan, J Cubes, played Lunar Dusk at Dusk, and he was hitting a lot of handoffs on him, and then like get him to the ledge, and then it's just like you die, right?
Yeah,
he like unplugs, and he was just like, dude, that's sort of like wobbling, dude.
Just like wobble.
Yeah, he's like, dude, I'm getting wobbled right now. That's funny, dude. A couple more questions before we wrap up. I'm having a hell, dude. I could ask you like 20 more questions, but I don't want to take too much of your time. One, I always ask, what type of music are you into? What are you listening to lately?
Okay. As you can expect with an ADHD person, I listen to some very like intense like EDM or just like game music or anime weeb shit. I listen to a good amount of like hip hop, things like that. Just things that like really stimulate my brain with like just a lot going on. Yeah. Like if you think about like the friggin' like the Nightcore tracks in like Osu, in, like it's some rhythm game. That's basically my vibe, where I'm just like tweeting constantly, pogging out. But yeah,
That's awesome.
Mhm.
And then my last question for you is when, you're not watching Melee, you're not playing Melee, you just want to lay down, relax, or, are you going on a walk? What are you doing? Like, are you watching a YouTube video? What type of shit are you watching or doing to relax and chill out?
Dang, yeah, I go on walks a lot. And in Arizona, like a lot of people would be like, "What's wrong with you?" But I just kind of take my water bottle and it's like fine. Once a week, I've been playing DDR, Dance Dance Revolution, with Ty, the Marth player.
Yeah, shout out. Yeah.
Yeah, so we do that. I do waste a lot of time, like, and I say waste because it's not like enjoyable. So like, I waste a lot of time like with the fucking the classics that eat up your time and energy. Twitter's a big one, just because like I already have to have one because of my life. So it's like easy to get sucked into the stupid, whatever stupid thing is happening that day. YouTube is stupid because I get recommended videos and I'm like, ooh, that'll be good. Or these stupid shorts. And then I'm like, wait, this is actually like not interesting. And it's actually like a waste of time. But it's easy to get hooked, even though it doesn't provide relaxation or anything interesting. So definitely trying to cut those things out. But other than that, the things that I actually do to relax, I think are good. I've been trying to get into like Mario 64, but I don't really have time for that. I got a Steam Deck recently. A big problem I've had with my life is once I went down the Melee rabbit hole, I like didn't play any games, and now I'm like, dude, but I've heard of all these cool games. Instead of wasting my time on these stupid idiot apps, like what if I just like did something cool and played new games or like watched a new show? So I'm trying to like get better at that. It's hard though because I just travel a lot. So like every weekend I'm like traveling, so it's easy. Like I spend so much time at the fucking airport, so I build habits of just looking at Twitter because you have nothing else to do. So yeah, it's hard. So, yeah, that's basically it.
I definitely feel that, especially with the YouTube shorts. I had to like block them because I would spend 2 hours watching the dumbest shit that I wouldn't learn anything from, and then I'd be like, okay, I'm not even happy after watching that.
That's what I'm saying, dude.
Dude, it's a time suck, dude. I was like, damn, all right. Well, on that note, thank you so much for coming on the show. I've had a hell of a time.
Yeah,
that was a great interview.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I had fun. So that was a good time.
This is Items On. I'm Ethiopium. Today's guest was Spark. Hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you for watching.